Thank you very much, Madam President and colleagues. I rise in support. I just have to say, due respect to my esteemed colleagues, it's easy to articulate the idea that we should have honest and complete picture and honest conversations. This has not been an honest conversation since the president descended his gilded escalator in 2015 to announce his candidacy for president. When he announced, falsely, that the biggest threat facing America was the immigration situation alone, that at that moment in time there were more unlawful entries than there were people leaving the United States, that fact wasn't discussed much. The mischaracterization of the immigration undocumented phenomenon, not as a civil violation of our immigration policies, but as a criminal offense, almost felonious in every case. The false assertion that the majority of people emigrating to the United States, regardless of status, were of evil intent, were terrorists, rapists, and criminals. That also was not a false statement. But you know, modern history should teach us something, and we should be reminded of something, colleagues. Tyrannical impulses live on the fuel of demagoguery. You set out a premise, you repeat a theme, you exploit cultural sensitivities, you exploit economic insecurity and fear, you even exploit racism to create a baseline for conversation that in every part seems to reinforce a gut feeling, a sensibility in the people, a belief that people who are different, speak different languages, come from different places, are somehow a threat to the American ideal. But they are the enemy. It's great politics when people are under pressure, when people are struggling to make ends meet. But it isn't an honest conversation, and it isn't a complete picture. We've seen this movie before. If we study history, we are reminded the Irish potato famine, the riots in the streets on the eastern seaboard in the early 20th century, even the late 19th century, the treatment of Asian Americans here in our own great state, and the modern phenomenon, the modern proclivity to look to Central America and Mexico as the source of all of our problems, and therefore dealing with immigration, at least in our rhetoric, is the way to go politically and from a policy standpoint. It is not. What we are witnessing today in the streets of San Diego County, along the border in my district, what we are witnessing today in Los Angeles and throughout this state, federal authorities executing enforcement law, covering their names and faces, indistinguishable from anyone on the street, grabbing people off the street, putting them into unmarked cars is something I never thought I would see in my lifetime. It is something I never thought we would see in America. It is something I never will accept as the American way. The conduct that we are seeing today is not the American way. It is based on a false premise. It is based on demagoguery. It is based, much like perhaps Germany in the late 1920s and through the mid and late 1930s in its economic distress, the need to find boogeymen and women to focus anger and distrust upon as the reason for all the problems in the nation. And it made room for one of the most detestable and grotesque events in human history. Some similarities here, I might say, Madam President and colleagues, that we can't ignore as we debate this question. The invocation, it seems, along with that false narrative, along with the false information, along with that demagoguery, evoking the images and symbols of our patriotism, sometimes even insinuating the colors of our flag, the flag itself, our cultural ideas about what patriotism are and is, are somehow partisan symbols. Along with the great irony at the very same time invoking and insinuating that, a complete failure to protect and defend and uphold the very constitution and principles of equality and decency that those symbols represent. As we have this conversation, we seem to be conveniently forgetting that. We seem to be conveniently forgetting the 5th and 14th Amendments' guarantees of due process, the heart of what makes our society different from so many others. Not to mention that great inscription on the bronze plaque at the base of the Statue of Liberty, which we're all very familiar. This is not the American way. This is not the actions of a government grounded and steeped and respecting the rule of law or our traditions or our culture. This is flirting with tyranny and conveniently ignoring the principles we have all taken an oath to protect. It's grotesque, it's wrong, it's un-American, and it is tearing this country apart. With all due respect to some of my colleagues in this chamber, that is not leadership. Madam President and colleagues, I strongly ask for an aye vote.